There's a reason you never see what happens in Walmart after midnight. I learned that the hard way. If you've ever wondered why some Walmart employees never come back after the graveyard shift, this is why. I'm not talking about people quitting because of low pay or rude customers, no. I mean the ones who vanish. The ones whose names get quietly erased from the schedule, whose lockers are emptied out by someone else, whose stories are whispered about in the break room, but never spoken aloud on the sales floor. You might think you know what goes on in a Walmart at night. Maybe you've done some late-night shopping yourself, wandered the empty aisles, half asleep, hunting for snacks or toilet paper under those buzzing fluorescent lights. Maybe you've seen the tired faces of the night crew, stacking boxes, mopping floors, pretending not to notice you. It all seems so ordinary, doesn't it? Just another big box store, just another night. But there's an unspoken rule among those of us who've worked the graveyard shift. Never talk about what you see after midnight. Not to your friends, not to your family, not even to your coworkers, especially not to your coworkers. Because the ones who talk too much, the ones who ask too many questions, they're the ones who disappear first. I know how this sounds. Like some urban legend, or a story you'd read on a creepy forum at 3 a.m. But I'm not here to scare you for fun. There are things I wish I could unsee, but if you're brave enough, I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you about the rules, the warnings, the things that move in the corners of your vision when you think you're alone. I'll tell you why I should have left sooner. It all started on a night that should have been like any other. If you've never worked a night shift at Walmart, let me paint you a picture. Imagine a place that's too bright for its own good, where the lights hum overhead like a swarm of mechanical bees, and the air always smells faintly of floor cleaner and stale popcorn. The aisles stretch on forever, perfectly straight, perfectly stocked at least until the clock hits midnight and the real work begins. It's a world that feels both endless and claustrophobic, like you could get lost between the cereal and the cleaning supplies and never be found. Most nights, it's just us, the night crew. We're a strange little family, thrown together by necessity and insomnia. There's Marcus, who claims he's only working here until his band makes it big, but he's been saying that for 3 years. There's Linda, who's been here longer than the store itself, or so she says, and who knows every hiding spot for a quick smoke break. And then there's me, clocking in at 11:57 p.m. sharp, always telling myself this is just temporary, just until I figure things out. We have our routines. First, the zombie shuffle through the break room, clutching bad coffee and trading stories about the weirdest customers we've seen. Like the guy who tried to return a half-eaten rotisserie chicken, or the woman who insisted the mannequins were watching her. We laugh about it, because what else can you do? If you don't laugh, you start to notice how the silence settles in after the last customer leaves, how the store feels too big, too empty. There's a kind of camaraderie that comes from working nights. We tease each other, make bets on who'll find the weirdest thing left in the lost and found. Marcus once found a single, muddy boot with a note inside that just said, "Sorry." Linda swears she saw a raccoon pushing a shopping cart once, but we're pretty sure she was just sleep-deprived. Still, we all have our little rituals, tapping the time clock twice for luck, never taking the same route through the aisles 2 nights in a row, always keeping an eye on the security mirrors. And then there are the unwritten rules. Don't eat anything from the bakery after midnight. Don't answer the phone if it rings more than 3 times. Don't go into the walk-in freezer alone. Most of them are just jokes, ways to pass the time and keep ourselves entertained. But there was one rule we never joked about, not even when we were bored out of our minds at 3 a.m. Never, ever talk about what you see after midnight. It's funny, in a dark way, how quickly you get used to the weirdness. The echo of your own footsteps, the way the mannequins seem to shift positions when you're not looking, the occasional customer who wanders in at 2 a.m. and acts like they've never seen daylight. You tell yourself it's all just part of the job, that there's a logical explanation for everything. You learn to ignore the little things, the flicker of movement at the end of an aisle, the way the intercom sometimes crackles with static for no reason. But that night, something felt different. Maybe it was the way the lights seemed a little dimmer, or how the air felt heavier, like a storm was coming. Maybe it was just my imagination, fueled by too much caffeine and not enough sleep. Or maybe it was something else. That's when I noticed something was off. It started small, almost easy to ignore. A flicker in the lights above the pet food aisle. A faint metallic clatter from somewhere in the back. The kind of things you chalk up to old wiring or a shelf settling under the weight of too many cans. I told myself it was nothing, just the usual quirks of a building that never really sleeps. But that night, the little things felt sharper, more deliberate, like the store itself was holding its breath. I was restocking the shelves and housewares, stacking plastic bins, and trying not to think about how much my feet hurt when I noticed the lights overhead stuttering. Not the usual quick blink, but a slow, pulsing dimness, like someone was playing with a dimmer switch. I glanced up, half expecting to see Marcus messing with the breaker panel again, but the aisle was empty. The shadows seemed to stretch a little longer than they should, pooling in the corners, swallowing the ends of the aisle. Then came the noises. Not the normal hum of the refrigerators or the distant whir of the floor buffer, but something softer, almost like whispering. I paused, listening, but it faded as soon as I tried to focus on it. I shook it off, telling myself it was just the building settling, the way Linda always said. "This place is old," she'd laugh. "It creaks more than my knees." But even Linda's jokes couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, just out of sight. I tried to distract myself by texting Marcus, asking if he'd noticed anything weird. He replied with a meme of a ghost pushing a shopping cart, followed by, "Relax, it's just Dave haunting the place." That was our running joke ever since Dave, one of the overnight stalkers, had quit without warning last month. He'd left his vest hanging in the break room and never came back. Some people said he'd finally snapped after too many nights alone in the back aisles. Others whispered about the time he'd been found standing in the dark, staring at the security monitors, mumbling about faces in the screens. We laughed about it, but none of us liked working alone after that. I kept moving, trying to shake the feeling crawling up my spine. Every so often, I'd catch a glimpse of movement in the convex mirrors at the end of the aisle, but when I turned, there was nothing there. Just rows of silent merchandise, waiting for someone to notice them. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd just had too much coffee and not enough sleep. But deep down, I knew better. I should have paid more attention to the signs. Then, the intercom crackled to life. The intercom in our store is ancient, one of those yellowed plastic boxes mounted high above the customer service desk, always crackling with static or the occasional accidental broadcast of someone's off-key humming. But that night, the sound that came through wasn't static, and it wasn't music. It was my name. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. The voice was warped, stretched thin and metallic, like it was being dragged through a tunnel. "Hey, my name," it rasped, the syllables twisting in a way that made my skin crawl. Then, clear as day, it said, "Don't forget the blue umbrella." My heart stopped. That was a phrase only my sister used, a private joke from when we were kids, something no one at work could possibly know. I froze, staring up at the speaker, waiting for someone to laugh or admit to the prank. But the store was silent, the only sound the distant hum of the refrigerators. I fumbled for my walkie-talkie, my hands suddenly slick with sweat. "Did anyone else hear that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Marcus's voice crackled back, lazy and unconcerned. "Hear what? You talking to yourself again?" Linda chimed in, her tone half amused, half annoyed. "If you're trying to freak us out, it's not working. Save it for Halloween, kid." I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination, or maybe a glitch in the system. But the way the voice had said my name, the way it had known that phrase, it felt like someone was watching me, someone who knew things they shouldn't. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in my throat. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe it was a prank, some bored manager messing with the intercom system. Or maybe it was like those stories you hear from other stores, the ones about voices calling out from empty aisles, or employees hearing their own names whispered over the speakers when they're alone. I'd always thought those stories were just internet creepypasta, the kind of thing people made up to scare new hires. But now, standing there with my heart pounding and my name still echoing in my ears, I wasn't so sure. That was the first time I realized I wasn't alone. Not really. There was something else in the store with us, something that watched and listened and waited. I glanced up at the security cameras. half expecting to see a face staring back at me from the monitors. But all I saw was my own reflection, pale and wide-eyed, framed by endless rows of merchandise. I tried to shake it off, but the night was just beginning. After the intercom incident, I tried to lose myself in busy work, hoping the routine would settle my nerves. But the store felt different now, like the air itself was holding its breath. That's when Linda's voice crackled through my walkie, telling me to restock the clearance aisle at the far end of the store. "Nobody's been down there all night," she said, her tone casual, but I could hear the edge in her voice. "Might as well make yourself useful." The clearance aisle was always a little strange, half-lit, cluttered with forgotten merchandise, a graveyard for things nobody wanted. As I pushed my cart down the main aisle, the lights overhead seemed to grow dimmer, the hum of the store fading into a heavy, unnatural silence. My footsteps echoed, too loud, bouncing off the shelves and disappearing into the gloom. I turned into the clearance aisle and stopped short. The air was colder here, sharp enough to sting my skin. Shadows pooled in the corners, thick and oily, swallowing the ends of the aisle. The overhead lights flickered, casting everything in a sickly, yellow glow. I tried to focus on the task, restocking a shelf of mismatched mugs and dented boxes, but my hands shook, and every sound seemed amplified. The scrape of cardboard, the soft thud of a mug against the shelf, the distant creak of metal. As I worked, I noticed something odd. The products on the shelves weren't where I'd left them. A row of snow globes I'd stacked earlier was now scattered across the floor, and a box of Halloween masks had been shoved to the very back, as if someone or something had been searching for something. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see Marcus playing a prank, but the aisle was empty. That's when I saw a scrap of paper, wedged between two boxes of expired cereal. I pulled it free, my fingers numb with cold. The handwriting was jagged, hurried, almost desperate. "Don't look behind you." My breath caught in my throat. I stared at the note, my mind racing. Was this some kind of joke? A leftover from Halloween? Or was it meant for me? I glanced down the aisle, heart pounding, but the shadows only seemed to deepen, pressing in on all sides. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in my throat. The temperature dropped another degree, and I could see my breath fogging in the air. The silence was absolute, broken only by the faintest whisper of movement like fabric brushing against metal or the soft shuffle of feet on linoleum. That's when I heard footsteps that weren't mine. Slow, deliberate, coming from the far end of the aisle. I froze, clutching the note so tightly it crumpled in my fist. The footsteps stopped, then started again, closer this time. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I could feel eyes on me, watching from the darkness, waiting for me to turn around. I still don't know who or what left that note. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe it was a threat. All I know is that I wasn't the only one in that aisle. Her name was Jess. She was the kind of person who made the night shift bearable, always quick with a joke, always humming some pop song under her breath, always the first to volunteer for the weirdest tasks. Jess was fearless, or at least she pretended to be. She'd once chased a raccoon out of the break room with nothing but a mop and a string of creative curses. If anyone could laugh off the strangeness of the night, it was her. But that night, even Jess seemed on edge. She found me in the clearance aisle, still clutching the crumpled note, and raised an eyebrow. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, trying to sound casual, but her eyes darted to the shadows behind me. Before I could answer, a sharp, metallic clang echoed from somewhere near. The back of the store. We both jumped. Jess forced a laugh. Probably just Marcus dropping something. Again, but her voice was too high, too brittle. We met up with Marcus and Linda near the loading dock, where the noise had come from. The four of us stood in a tight circle, the air thick with unease. "Did you hear that?" Jess asked, glancing from face to face. Marcus shrugged, but his hands were shaking. "Probably a rat. Or a possum. Or, Dave's ghost." Linda shot him a look. "Not funny, Marcus." Another crash, louder this time. Jess rolled her eyes, trying to play it cool. "Fine, I'll check it out. You three stay here, and try not to wet yourselves." She grabbed a flashlight and disappeared down the corridor, her footsteps echoing in the silence. We waited. 1 minute. 2. 5. The only sound was the distant hum of the freezers and the nervous shuffle of our feet. "She's taking too long," Linda whispered, her voice trembling. Marcus tried to joke, but his voice cracked. Maybe she found the raccoon again. I couldn't shake the image of the note in my pocket. "Don't look behind you." I wanted to call out to Jess, but my throat was dry, my tongue heavy. Finally, we couldn't take it anymore. We followed the corridor, calling her name. "Jess? Come on, this isn't funny." The flashlight beam danced over pallets and boxes, casting long, twitching shadows. Then we saw it a single shoe, Jess's, lying in the middle of the floor. Next to it, a trail of wet footprints, leading away from us, glistening in the harsh fluorescent light. The footprints stopped at the door to the old storage room. The handle was ice cold, and when Marcus tried it, it wouldn't budge. Locked from the inside. We pounded on the door, shouting Jess's name, but there was no answer. Just the echo of our own voices, bouncing back at us from the darkness. Panic set in. Linda started crying. Marcus cursed under his breath, and I just stood there, staring at that single, abandoned shoe. The camaraderie we'd built over months of night shifts dissolved in an instant, replaced by suspicion and fear. We argued, should we call the manager, the police, someone? But deep down, we all knew it wouldn't matter. We never found out what happened to her. Jess was just gone. No one ever saw her again. Her locker was emptied out the next day, her name erased from the schedule, just like Dave's. That's when the power went out. In the dark, Walmart becomes something else. The moment the lights died, the store transformed from a familiar maze of aisles and end caps into a cavernous, unknowable void. The hum of the freezers, the buzz of the fluorescents, the distant beeping of registers, all of it vanished, swallowed by a silence so thick it pressed against my eardrums. For a few seconds, I just stood there, paralyzed, listening to the frantic thud of my own heart. My phone's flashlight was weak, barely enough to cut through the blackness. The beam trembled in my hand, illuminating only a few feet ahead. The rest of the world was gone, replaced by shifting shadows and the echo of my own ragged breathing. I called out for Marcus and Linda, but my voice sounded small, swallowed by the endless aisles. Somewhere in the distance, something moved. Not the scurry of a mouse or the creak of settling shelves, but a slow, deliberate shuffling, as if someone or something was dragging itself across the linoleum. I pressed myself against the nearest shelf, trying to steady my breathing. My mind raced with every horror story I'd ever heard about this place, every whispered warning passed between night shift workers. There are rules for surviving the blackout. I only remembered some of them. Don't split up. Don't use your phone for too long, the battery drains faster here. Don't trust the mirrors. And whatever you do, don't answer if you hear your name. I tried to recall the rest, but panic made everything slippery, hard to hold on to. I edged forward, flashlight trembling, the beam catching on abandoned carts and toppled boxes. The store felt endless, the aisles stretching on forever, each one identical to the last. I tried to retrace my steps, but the layout seemed wrong, warped by the darkness. Shelves loomed where they shouldn't, displays twisted into unfamiliar shapes. I stumbled over something soft, a pile of stuffed animals, their glassy eyes reflecting the light in a way that made my skin crawl. Then came the noises. Not human, not animal, something in between. Wet, guttural breaths, the scrape of claws on tile, the faintest hint of laughter, high and thin, echoing from somewhere deep in the store. I spun around, the flashlight beams slicing through the dark, but there was nothing there. Just the endless, shifting shadows. I thought about Jess, about her shoe and the trail of wet footprints. I thought about Dave, about the stories of people who vanished during blackouts, their names erased, their faces forgotten. I wondered if I'd be next. I tried to find Marcus and Linda, calling their names in a whisper, afraid of what might answer. My phone buzzed a text from Marcus, just a string of random letters and symbols, like his fingers had slipped, or he was trying to say something he couldn't put into words. I tried to call him, but the line was dead, replaced by static and a faint, rhythmic tapping, like someone drumming their fingers on glass. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. My flashlight flickered, the battery draining faster than it should. I remembered another rule. If your light goes out, don't try to turn it back on. Just run. I gripped the phone tighter, praying the beam would hold. I caught glimpses of movement at the edge of the light, a flash of pale skin, the glint of eyes, the suggestion of something impossibly tall slipping between the shelves. I told myself it was just my imagination, but I knew better. The store was alive, watching, waiting. I tried to keep moving, following the faintest hint of air currents, the memory of where the exits should be. Every step felt wrong, like I was walking in circles, the aisles rearranging themselves behind me. I was losing track of time, of direction, of myself. I thought I was alone until I heard my name whispered from the toy aisle. The whisper came again, softer this time, curling around my name like a question. I froze, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand, barely illuminating the garish colors of the toy aisle. Dolls stared back at me with glassy, unblinking eyes. Somewhere, a music box played a tune I recognized from childhood, slow and warped, as if the batteries were dying. "Hey, it's me," the voice called, and for a split second, I thought it was Jess. But Jess was gone. I knew that. Still, the voice was perfect, her tone, her laugh, even the way she used to draw out my name when she was teasing me. "Come here. I found something you need to see." I took a step forward, against every instinct screaming at me to run. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of plastic and something sour, like spoiled milk. The shadows seemed to pulse, drawing closer with every breath. I could feel something watching me, just out of sight, waiting for me to make a mistake. Then the voice changed. It was Marcus now, calling from the end of the aisle. "Hey, you okay? I'm over here." But the words were wrong, the cadence off, like someone trying to remember how to be human. I shone my light toward the sound, but the beam was swallowed by darkness. I saw a shape tall, impossibly thin, limbs too long, head cocked at an unnatural angle. Its skin shimmered, shifting between colors and textures, as if it couldn't decide what to be. I stumbled back, heart pounding, but the thing only smiled a wide, lipless grin that split its face in two. It spoke again, this time in Linda's voice, soft and motherly. "Don't be scared, honey. It's just us. We're all here." The words echoed, overlapping, as if a dozen voices were speaking at once. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the sound burrowed into my skull, relentless. The entity moved closer, its form flickering between familiar faces: Jess, Marcus, Linda, even my own reflection. It mimicked their gestures, their laughs, their little quirks, but everything was just a little bit off. The eyes were always wrong, too bright, too wide, too hungry. "You've been here a while now," it whispered, its voice shifting with every syllable. "We've been watching you, learning you. You're interesting." The thing cocked its head, as if studying me. "You're not like the others. You see things. You remember." I tried to back away, but the aisles seemed to stretch, the shelves growing taller, the toys multiplying until there was nowhere left to run. The entity's shadow fell over me, cold and suffocating. I could feel it rooting through my memories, plucking out secrets I'd never told anyone: my sister's blue umbrella, the time I hid in the garden shed during a thunderstorm, the way I used to talk to myself when I was scared. "You're not the first," it said, and now its voice was a chorus, dozens of voices layered on top of each other. Some I recognized, some I didn't. There have been others, so many others. Some tried to fight, some tried to hide. None of them made it out. I remembered the stories, the ones whispered in the break room, posted on message boards, shared in late-night texts between night shift workers. Stories about people who vanished, about things that moved in the dark, about voices that called your name when you were alone. I'd always thought they were just stories. But now, standing face to face with the thing that haunted those tales, I knew the truth. If you've heard stories like this before, you know what comes next. The entity feeds on fear, on secrets, on the things you try to hide from yourself. It waits in the places no one looks, slipping between the cracks of reality, wearing the faces of the people you trust. It's always hungry, always searching for someone new. I tried to reason with it, to plead, but the thing only laughed, a sound like glass shattering. "You're fun," it said, its voice echoing down the aisle. But you're not special. You're just next. I wasn't the first. I won't be the last. The entity leaned in, its face inches from mine, its eyes swirling with memories that weren't its own. Tell me a secret, it whispered, and maybe I'll let you go. I had to get out before it learned everything about me. Every exit led me deeper inside. I ran, heart hammering, the entity's laughter echoing behind me, bouncing off the shelves and ricocheting through my skull. The aisles twisted and shifted, rearranging themselves with every frantic turn. I'd sprint toward the glowing green exit sign, only to find myself back in the toy aisle, the same doll staring, the same music box playing its broken tune. The store was folding in on itself, trapping me in a maze of my own fear. I tried to focus, to remember the rules. Don't trust the mirrors, don't answer if you hear your name, don't let it see you panic. But panic was all I had left. My breath came in ragged gasps, my flashlight flickering as the battery drained. Shadows darted at the edge of my vision, shapes that didn't belong, too tall, too thin, moving with a jerky, unnatural rhythm. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me, quick, desperate, human. I spun around, nearly dropping my light. Marcus stumbled into view, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. "We have to get out," he gasped, grabbing my arm. "It's not safe. It's not safe." Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. Something about Marcus was wrong. His grip was too tight, his voice too flat, like he was reciting lines from a script. "Where's Linda?" I asked, pulling away. She's waiting by the garden center," he said, but his eyes flickered, darting to the shadows. "Come on, we have to hurry." I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to run the other way. But I followed, desperate for any sign of normalcy. We moved through the aisles, the store warping around us, shelves stretching impossibly high, products melting into each other, the floor tilting beneath our feet. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of rot and ozone. We reached the garden center doors, and there was Linda, standing perfectly still, her back to us. "Linda," I called, my voice trembling. She turned, and my blood ran cold. Her smile was too wide, her eyes too bright, reflecting the flashlight's beam like a cat's. "You made it," she said, her voice echoing with a dozen others. "We're almost free." Marcus squeezed my arm, his nails digging into my skin. "We have to go," he whispered, but his mouth didn't move. The words came from somewhere deep inside him, hollow and wrong. I jerked away, stumbling back. "You're not real," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "You're not them." Linda's smile widened, splitting her face. "We can be anyone you want," she purred, her voice shifting through every tone I'd ever heard. "Jess, Marcus, my sister, even my own. Just tell us a secret. Just let us in." I backed away, heart pounding, the world spinning around me. The entity was everywhere now, wearing the faces of everyone I'd ever cared about, their voices overlapping, pleading, mocking, promising safety if I'd just give in. The aisles closed in, the shelves bending toward me, the lights flickering in time with my heartbeat. Desperation clawed at me. I remembered the FOMO trigger, the whispered warning from the break room. There's one way out, but it comes at a price. I didn't know what the price was, but I knew I couldn't stay here, couldn't let the thing inside my head. I ran, dodging grasping hands and shifting shadows, the store warping with every step. I tried every exit, front doors, emergency exits, even the loading dock, but each one led me back to the same place, the clearance aisle. The note still crumpled in my fist. "Don't look behind you." I was trapped, the entity's laughter growing louder, filling the air with static and dread. My flashlight died, plunging me into darkness. I could feel it closing in, pressing against my mind, rooting through my memories, searching for something to use against me. Then, in the darkness, I heard my own voice, soft and pleading. "Please, I'll do anything. Just let me go." The entity paused, its presence coiling around me like smoke. "Anything," it whispered, its voice 1,000 voices, all hungry, all waiting. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Anything. There's one way out, but it comes at a price. I made a choice I'll regret forever." The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating, the entity's presence curling around me like a cold, wet blanket. I could feel it inside my head, sifting through my thoughts, tasting my fear. I was cornered, nowhere left to run. Every exit folding back into the same aisle. The same note. The same echo of my own desperate breathing. "Please," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What do you want from me?" The shadows shifted, coalescing into a shape that was almost human, almost familiar. Its face flickered through the people I'd known: Jess, Marcus, Linda, my sister, even my own reflection, each one smiling with that same hungry, knowing grin. "You know what I want," it said, its voice a chorus of memories. "A secret, a memory, something real. Give me a piece of you, and I'll let you go." I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to refuse. But the alternative was worse. I could feel myself unraveling, my sense of self slipping away with every second I spent in its presence. I thought of all the things I'd never told anyone, the memories I kept locked away, the secrets that made me who I was. "What if I refuse?" I asked, my voice trembling. The entity's smile widened, impossibly wide. "Then you'll stay here, with us, forever. You'll forget who you are, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but echoes." I closed my eyes, searching for something I could give up, something I could survive without. But every memory felt precious, every secret a thread in the fabric of my being. Still, I knew I had no choice. Survival or sacrifice, there was no middle ground. "Fine," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Take it. Take my—" I stopped, the words catching in my throat. "I can't tell you what I gave up. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I felt it leave me, a sharp, cold pain, like a tooth being pulled from the root." The entity shuddered, its form flickering, feeding on the piece of me I'd surrendered. "Good," it purred, its voice softer now, almost gentle. "You may go, but remember, what's given cannot be returned. And what's lost is never truly gone." The darkness receded, the aisles straightening, the lights flickering back to life. I stumbled forward, gasping for air. The store's suddenly ordinary again, just shelves and products and the distant hum of the freezers. But I knew better. I could feel the emptiness inside me, a hollow space where something important used to be. I staggered toward the exit, my legs weak, my mind foggy. The doors slid open with a cheerful chime, and I stepped out into the cold night air, free at last. But as I looked back, I saw the entity watching me from the shadows, its eyes bright with stolen secrets, its smile promising that this was not the end. I made it out, but not all of me did. I survived, but I'm not free. That's the truth I wake up to every morning, if I manage to sleep at all. The nightmares come in waves, aisles that stretch on forever, voices calling my name from the darkness, faces I almost recognize twisting into something hungry and wrong. I wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, convinced that if I close my eyes again, I'll find myself back in that endless, shifting maze. During the day, everything looks normal. The sun shines through my window, the world hums along, and the store is just a store. I've walked past it a dozen times since that night, watching the automatic doors slide open for customers who have no idea what waits inside after midnight. Sometimes I see Marcus or Linda laughing with the new hires, acting like nothing ever happened. When I try to talk to them about Jess, about the blackout, about what we saw, they just look at me like I'm crazy. "You must have dreamed it," Marcus says, his smile too tight. "Jess transferred. She left a note, remember?" But I know that's not true. I remember the shoe, the footprints, the locked door. I remember the way the store felt when the lights went out. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I catch glimpses of movement in the corners of my vision, a flicker of a familiar face, a shadow that lingers just a second too long. I hear my name whispered in empty rooms, see reflections in mirrors that don't quite match my own. The emptiness inside me aches, a constant reminder of what I gave up to escape. I've tried to warn people. I've posted online, left anonymous notes in the break room, even called the store manager in the middle of the night. But no one believes me. Or maybe they just don't want to. It's easier to pretend the rules are just jokes, that the stories are just stories. But I know better. I know the entity is still there, waiting for the next unlucky soul to wander the aisles after midnight, hungry for secrets, for memories, for pieces of someone new. If you work the night shift, watch your back. Don't trust the mirrors. Don't answer if you hear your name. And whatever you do, don't make a bargain you can't live with. The price of survival is higher than you think. There's one last thing you need to know. If you've seen something strange at Walmart, you're not alone. Maybe you've caught a glimpse of something moving just out of sight, or heard your name whispered when you thought you were the only one in the aisle. Maybe you've felt that cold, crawling dread that settles in your bones when the lights flicker and the store goes quiet. If any of this sounds familiar, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments, or send it to me directly. Trust me, you're in good company here. There are more stories out there, some even worse than mine. I've heard whispers about other stores, other shifts, other bargains made in the dark. Some people say the entity isn't just in Walmart, that it moves from place to place, always hungry, always waiting for someone to slip up. Maybe you've heard about the night manager who never blinks, or the customer who comes in at 3:33 a.m. and never leaves through the front doors. Maybe you've got your own theory about what really happens after midnight. If you've been following these stories for a while, you know this isn't the first time something like this has happened, and it won't be the last. Maybe next time, I'll tell you about the night manager who never blinks, or the time the security cameras caught something that wasn't supposed to exist. So stay alert, share your warnings, and remember, if you hear your name over the intercom after midnight, run.